I was always enamored of the line that Martin Luther King wrote when he said that the desegregation of the American South is the political externalization of the goal of the civil rights movement, he said. He said, but the ultimate goal is the establishment of the beloved community. In other words, once again, a line from him, we need external changes in our circumstances, but also internal changes in our souls. The 20th century was dominated by a very mechanistic paradigm, very mechanistic mindset. The world was seen as a big machine. It was a very Newtonian paradigm. The world is a big machine. If you don't like what's happening in the world, you change the pieces of the machine. And that meant that all eyes were on what was going on the outside, a concentration on the external but not the internal dynamics of life, concentration on symptoms but not on root causes. And something began to wither away. It's like a muscle that began to wither away in the consciousness of humanity. This was also, for those of you who are interested, this is what Walt Whitman and Emerson and Thoreau and the American transcendentalists, they were all railing against this. Industrialization made us so enamored, by the things that were happening on the outside. The 21st century is very different. The 21st century is a much more holistic, whole person paradigm. People understanding that something has gone wrong, something's rotting from the inside. A British physicist named James Jean said it turns out that the world is not one big machine, it's one big thought. Now, our politics is rooted in 20th century thinking. It's very mechanistic, it's very transactional. It's always talking about symptoms, never getting to root cause. One of the reasons that traditional politicians don't want to talk about root causes is because if we did, we'd see how often their policies were at the root cause of so much that has gone wrong. This candidacy, this campaign, we stand for a transformational approach to politics. And that also means that it's not just about the candidate. It's not just about me. In order for us to make the changes that we need to make in this country, for us to initiate a genuine season of repair, for us to have a genuine U-turn, all of us have to be involved. And we have to be involved not just in what we do, but in who we are. It's going to take some radical forgiveness of ourselves and others to really start over. And each of us has to begin to see politics as a kind of layer of a well-lived, meaningful life. I say to people all the time at my talks, the traditional politician will come and say, send me to Washington to fight for you. I don't want to go to Washington and fight for you. What I want to go to Washington for is to co-create with you a new chapter in American history, a new beginning. And, other generations have done that. We're hardwired for big things, and I think we're depressed because we're not doing big things. The founding of this country was a big thing. It was an entrepreneurial project. God knows it had its flaws. But the spirit of let's start the world over again, that Thomas Paine, that's what abolition stood for. That's what women's suffrage stood for. That's what the organized labor movement, its initiation stood for. That's what the civil rights stood for. Let's not do it the way it was before. Let's start over. Let's course correct. We can do that. And that's what this campaign stands for. That's what my presidency would stand for. A new beginning and a meaningful, fundamental course correction. What do the traditional politicians, what do both Trump and Biden stand for? Making life easier, and believe me, one is much better than the other, and we know that. Making life what? Easier for people living at the effect of an inherently rigged, unjust system? I want to unrig it. I want to stop the injustice. And in order to do that, all of us have to do the heavy lifting. This is more than about vote for me. This is about all of us searching our own hearts. And the political philosophy of nonviolence, first articulated by Gandhi, then Dr. King went to India and he studied those principles and he brought them back for application to the civil rights movement in the 1960s. Gandhi said that the end is inherent in the means. In other words, everything we do is infused with the consciousness with which we do it. Politics itself should be a conduit, an instrument for a transformational change that involves every aspect of who we are. Our love, not our hate, not our cynicism, not our I'm smart, you're not, I'm right, you're not, you should shut up. That is so sophomoric, that is so evolutionarily low level. That will not get us where we need to go. We need to see politics as an offering, and I hope that you see an involvement in this campaign as an offering. We are offering to the American people an alternative agenda, an alternative to the economic and political partnership, the unholy alliance between corporate power and government, which right now just serves to make those who already have able to get more and everybody else left to just struggle to get by. And this is destroying people's lives. But you can't live endlessly, month after month, year after year, shackled by the invisible chains of economic constriction, working at a job that you hate, but it's the only way you can, you can get the benefits and pay for child care. People having to work more than one job, having dignified careers like teaching, and then you still have to go drive an Uber because you can't make it. I do remind you, as I remind people all the time, during the 1970s, when we had a thriving middle class, one salary could support a family of four. One average couple could afford a house, they could afford a car, they could afford a yearly vacation, they could afford to send their kids to college, they could afford for one parent to stay home with the kids if they wanted. That's collapsed, and it's collapsed because of a $50 trillion transfer of wealth from the bottom 90% to the top 1% of Americans. It's been a war on the middle class, and that's what this campaign is about. It's a response to the war on the middle class in this country. It's a response to an economic paradigm by which short-term profits for huge corporate entities has replaced democracy, has replaced humanitarian values. It's become our new governing principle. And when that's our governing principle, then democracy is not, and humanitarian values are not. And that's how Washington operates. It's a system of legalized bribery, issue after issue after issue, with our leaders actually voting in ways to do more to serve the bottom line, the economic profit motive of their donors, than to serve the expressed will and the safety and the health and the well-being of their constituents. That needs to stop, and we need a president who says so. And we need a president sitting in the middle, in the Oval Office, who will, with all the power of the executive branch, stand for the alternative to that. Say, no, this has got to stop. This is a swerve away from democracy. Because when you don't have a thriving middle class, you can't have a thriving democracy. You have a thriving oligarchy. This is serious. This is very, very serious. When people say this is the most important election of our lifetime, yeah, it's one of the most important elections of our history. And so this is not going to change unless we change it. And for those of you who are voters in New Hampshire, and I know many of you are deciding even now, who am I going to vote for? I don't think Joe Biden will beat Donald Trump. I think he is not the man of this particular moment. We need something so energetic. I see myself as a kind of homeopathic remedy to Donald Trump, because I understand he's not a traditional politician, and I'm not a traditional politician either. That's the good news when you're talking about defeating Donald Trump. This is not like 2020. It's like 2016. I hope you'll consider letting me in there, because he brings people down, and I'm going to bring people up. If I have the chance, we will inspire people. That's what this campaign needs to be about, inspiring people for a new chapter in American history, an economic Bill of Rights where everyone has universal health care, Medicare for all, eradication of the college loan debt using the Higher Education Act, tuition-free college and tech school, subsidized child care, paid family leave, a Marshall Plan of housing, building 10 to 20 million units of social housing, guaranteed sick pay, guaranteed living wage. These are the things that constitute a new beginning for the United States, a righting of the ship. We can have all of this. But it all starts tomorrow with a vote in New Hampshire. So if you live in New Hampshire, I hope that you will vote your heart here. We know now that the intelligence center of the body is not just the brain. It's a partnership between the brain and the heart. And that's the intelligence center, not only of the body, but of human civilization. When David beat Goliath, he hit him in the forehead with 3 smooth stones. And why was David able to bring down Goliath with 3 smooth stones in the middle of his forehead? Well, let's get Jungian here for a moment. Like I said, we're going to talk philosophy and psychology. That's the point. We need a much more holistic understanding of politics. Because that third eye, that seat of the soul, Goliath doesn't have one. And we're going to beat him by speaking to the noble in people. We're going to beat him by speaking to conscience in people. We're going to beat him by arousing love and compassion and greatness. That's what greatness is. Greatness is when we embrace the principle of a society in which anyone should be able to thrive if they work hard enough, and that everyone should be unshackled from the internal as well as external chains that bind them. This is a radical in the way that the Declaration of Independence is radical. It's radical to say that all men are created equal. It's radical to say that all men have the rights, to inalienable rights of life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness. It's radical to say that government is instituted to secure those rights. And it's radical to say that the people can alter it or abolish it if it's not doing that job. Now, I'm not calling to abolish it, but damn right I'm calling to alter it. And we can start tomorrow. So, sign up to volunteer at Marianne2024.com. We'll have your phone banking today. If you're in New Hampshire, please show up. If you're anywhere near New Hampshire, come help us. We need your help at the polls. Go to Marianne2024.com. Send out our videos. Do your own endorsements on social media. Get busy. Create a political breakthrough. Abolition was a miraculous political breakthrough, as was women's suffrage, as was the civil rights movement, as was the initiation of the original labor movement. We were hardwired to do great things. As Americans, as human beings. None of this, I can't change. Well, nobody needs to tell me how hard it is. But if all of us decide to do it and we do it together, something extraordinary will happen here. I'm ready if you're ready. Let's do this thing.